me put this on Do Not Disturb
Yeah,
because
let me do that too.
I was doing a podcast at VidCon recently, and my mom called in the middle of the podcast.
So funny, Man, can I hand this to you?
I was cracking up. Oh my gosh, it was just kind of like, damn, mom. It's okay. Moms don't care.
Shout out moms.
Shout out moms, which is
Fix this wedge.
this is like a great segue into what we're gonna talk about today. But first, intro. What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Juju, aka Straw Hat Goofy, your movie guy. I am sitting here with our very first Oscar-nominated guest on the other side. He's looking. He's like, did that happen?
True?
It's very true. It's very Come on, don't. And here's the thing. Let me introduce you, and then we're gonna get into this because I got a lot to say to you. We are here with Sean Wang. He is the director of the new film DÍdi, one of my favorite films that I watched at South by Southwest, man. Like, congratulations on this film finally coming out, wide release for everybody to see. How you feeling today?
Dude, I feel good. Thanks for having me. It's good to see you again.
Yeah, it's good to see you too, man. Like, when we talked to South by Southwest, the movie was still very, very fresh to a lot of people. It's your directorial feature debut as well.
Yes, sir.
Because we talked about how you were nominated for an Oscar for Best Documentary Short. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Thank
you. We met at a very crazy time because the Oscars had just happened, I think the day before. So I was very, very exhausted. But it was a wonderful conversation.
You were doing your thing, man. Like, and I was really excited to talk about this film, but I really want to, like, get into just like what this podcast is about, why I started it. Like, obviously, like, you know, you're a director, you love film, I love film as like an audience consumer, and I started this podcast because I really want to get to know people who create films, who are a part of it, who just love it, and just kind of figure out like where they came from by way of watching these type of things, right? So I like to ask people all the time, like, what are those movies, or is it a specific movie that was the building block to who Sean is? Like, what was something that you saw that said, like, this has changed everything for me?
Yeah, I mean, in relation to the movie, I would say, like, Stand By Me and 400 Blows were very, very big sort of formative movies for me, but I didn't see those movies until I was like 19,
right,
you know?
Right.
I think for me, and we were kind of just talking off camera about, like, and I was a big anime kid,
Yeah.
not even just, like, you know, Toonami and, like, not the cartoons, but, like, the shows, but, like Full Metal Alchemist and, like, the movies that would come out, I think for me, like Princess Mononoke was like a very, very, very vivid, transportive experience for me. And I remember always liking movies, but even, like, I wasn't like a cinephile kid,
right?
You know. And I remember my uncle in Taiwan, he, like, transformed, you know, a room kind of like the room we're in now into like this, you know, kind of small DIY theater, like, you know, blackout curtains, and he just had shelves of DVDs. He just, like, really loved movies, but he also wasn't like I wouldn't say like a cinephile. He was just like, I love movies. And so his DVD collection was just totally unorganized, no rhyme or reason, like Kiki's Delivery Service next to Men in Black 2. And I would just go in there and kind of be like, oh, this cover looks cool, and you know, throw something on. I remember as a family we watched Princess Mononoke, and I was just kind of like, oh my God, that was the best movie I've ever seen. And then they were all like, okay, cool, let's go get dinner. And I was like,
you're like, my life has been changed.
No, I was like,
give me a second.
I wasn't old enough to, like, stay home alone, but I was like, can you please let me stay here, and I want to watch it again. They're like, no, let's go get. I was like, just please, like, I won't leave this room. 2 hours, like, hit play, I will be right here. And they went to go get dinner, and I just sat there and watched it again.
Oh my
gosh. I just remember that feeling so vividly. But then it became, like, you know, also skate videos and a bunch of, you know, all sorts of things that are not even, like, considered movies. You know?
I think for me and you, I feel like you become a cinephile without, like, necessarily knowing it. Like, I remember when I started watching film, I want to say the movie that, like, changed everything for me was, like, Spider-Man 2. And I remember watching that, and, like, super shame to say, but I was a kid, it wasn't my fault. My dad got me the bootleg of that movie, and, like, he bought it from this guy just, like, on
LimeWire,
like, you know, you remember the LimeWire days, those type of things. And I remember seeing that movie, and it wasn't just like a comic book film, and that was what changed my life. It was like the way of storytelling, like, because you know about characters like Spider-Man and stuff like all the time, but the way they tell that story and the way it was so relatable and the way it was so grounded, I said, this is a whole new way of storytelling for me. And so again, while it was happening, you don't say this is changing my life. But
Yeah.
I think back to those moments and I go, that was the moment that kind of like created who I am today. And it's funny that you say Princess Mononoke because I've had a very similar experience, except I didn't watch this movie until it was either I want to say last year actually.
Princess
It was
Mononoke?
Princess Mononoke. I didn't
Whoa.
watch it. And I don't even want to say like a year. It's been maybe like 7 months.
Yeah.
I
You watch
saw
it in
it for-
theaters?
I didn't. I didn't. So basically, you know how Max has like all the Studio
Like,
Ghibli
yeah.
films like all together. So it was during the strike, and it was during that time I wasn't watching a lot of like films for like in solidarity, but anime was still on the table, and so I was watching. I was like, you know what? Let me just catch up on as many Studio Ghibli films
Yeah.
that I haven't seen, and Princess Mononoke was top of the list, and I was watching it, and it blew me away. Just how when you're watching something that came before some other popular things, you start to see how it referenced that popular
Yeah, yeah.
thing. I was looking at it like this is Avatar. Like this is what Avatar takes a lot of its cues from.
Oh, interesting.
And so watching that, like I can like imagine people seeing that for the first time as children and just being like, "Oh my god, that's like absolutely
Yeah.
insane." So hearing that's like really really cool to know. Diving into kind of like what you just said right here, everything that you just said, like I'm gonna just put it into this. I love you and I hate you at the same time. Because when we first met, I was like, "You're so young, and so talented, and you've accomplished so much, and the fact that you're achieving your dreams at such a high level, like you gotta admire it. But at the same time, you're just like, what the fuck am I doing with my life?" Like, right? Again, talking about like how young you are, and you're definitely like in my like age bracket. Like you're someone that I could have went to high school with, and hearing you talk about like skate videos and talk about like just like the way your life has come up until now, I relate to that so much. And so talk to me about DÍdi filming it in 2008, obviously a time where you grew up at, and how skate videos kind of plays a role in that, because the main character like starts filming skate videos similar to like how you did, which sparked your whole like love of film and things of that sort.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think, the generation that I kind of come from, maybe we come from, is sort of like this very DIY consumer camera generation. I think even the character in the movie, similar to me, it wasn't like I picked up a camera because I was like, I want to be Spielberg or something. There was no filmmaking aspiration. It was like this period, and I think collectively it was like MTV, VH1. Kids started to be able to record on their phones and you upload it to YouTube, but it's like 144p, right? And so like this idea of just like starting to film stuff, it wasn't like influencer culture where it's like pointed at yourself. It was still just like filming. Like I looked at my friend's YouTube the other day, and it's just like parkour. Like the title was parkour, and it's just him jumping over a table. 5-second video, like super grainy, but it's just on YouTube.
Yeah,
that's what kids were doing for a few years when YouTube was kind of in like its infancy. And I was filming stuff on my phone, but I also like had I think my parents had like a little camcorder that had recording capabilities, so I started like filming my friends, and I got into skating. And I think there were these really really influential skate videos that were like the 90s and early 2000s, which was like Spike Jonze's company. It was like Yeah Right and Goldfish and Mouse and like all of these, and Video Days that he did. These are all like very seminal like full length skate videos, and those are the things that really really shaped me. Also this video called Bag of Suck, and also like all these like very 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 formative skate videos, and I watched all of them. That was like my diet. I was just kind of like obsessed with that. And also like on YouTube people would make like skate montages, and so I kind of was like in that world. And I would go over to my friend's house to watch MTV, and we watch like Jackass and all this stuff because I wasn't allowed to watch it at home. But I kind of fell into that world and was really obsessed with skating and music. And then in 2007, a video that this company that called Lakai that Spike was a part of, and this filmmaker Ty Evans and the filmmaker Corey Wine. I'm not sure how to pronounce his last name, but they released this video called Fully Flared, and it's like one of the seminal skate videos of like the 2000s of all time, really. And the intro to that video, it was directed by Spike, and it's really just like a huge it's like slow motion ethereal music, like M83 scored it, and it's just skaters doing tricks in like extreme slow mo, but it's so big and cinematic. And I remember feeling like almost like how I felt watching Princess Mononoke. It was just like this transportive kind of like, holy shit, what is this? I feel something. But it was like a skate video.
Yeah.
You know, like Princess Mononoke, at least like, oh, I'm watching a movie. This is like I'm watching dudes skate.
Yeah.
And I'm like moved. It was very strange. And I just remember being like, oh, like I only thought you get this feeling watching movies. And I never could see myself as a filmmaker, but I was like already making skate videos.
Right.
So I was like, oh, maybe I'll try and do that. Which it wasn't a thing. I was like, what is like emotional skate videos? It's not
emotional
a thing.
skate video. That's a whole subject.
Yeah, it's a whole thing, but it just kind of got me thinking and trying to make things, you know, a little bit more at like a, I don't know if higher level is the right word, but I think I started to realize, I was like, oh, there's like a craft to this, and I can move people if I do things the right way. And then in 2009, Where the Wild Things Are came out, which was directed by Spike.
Yeah.
And I remember the company, his company, like it was like all under this umbrella of companies called Krell Tap, but they were releasing like Where the Wild Things Are skateboards, and like I thought they were collaborating with Urban Outfitters.
Okay.
Because at the time, a lot of kids at my school started wearing Where the Wild Things Are like shirts and stuff, and they would get them from Urban Outfitters, and I was like, that's a weird collaboration, like girl skateboards and Urban Outfitters. But then I was like, oh wait, no, Spike directed that movie. And again, I had only known him from like the skate videos and all these little sort of DIY things as well, and
That's
Jackass.
a talented man, dude.
And that really just kind of was the thing that set me on my path in a way, where I was like, that's a huge $100 million movie, and this is like a no budget skate video he made with his friends. And I was like, you can do both.
Yeah.
You know, and something about that. I still, you know, I don't think I could have articulated it when I was like 14, but something about seeing that was just kind of like, oh, I could be a filmmaker.
That's insane because, and I don't know if it's because I fell out of it. I don't see a lot of skate videos out there anymore. Like I used to consume skate videos all the time because, you know, during the time, the X Games were like pretty big. They were like on par with, say, like the Super Bowl. Like I remember seeing Tony Hawk doing the 900 for the first time live, and you know, obviously things like Rocket Power. They had like
oh my god, Rocket Power, yeah.
You know, they had whole entire shows geared towards like the X Games era, and I don't want to say era as in like it's past now, because again, maybe I just fell out of it. But if you want to be a great director, skate videos is where to start. I mean, Sean, Spike, you know, I'm glad that you brought Spike up, because Spike is one of my favorite directors like ever. He created he created my favorite film of all time, which is Her. And
they're playing Her tonight at the Academy Museum. I might go.
Are they?
Yeah. Sorry, derailing.
No, this isn't a derail. This is me in real time. Like,
yeah.
Figure out what I'm gonna do later on today. All right, are you going?
I haven't bought tickets, but it's in my calendar.
Let's buy tickets after this.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing tonight, because Her it's my favorite. Ooh, I love it. And so you know, again, Spike, really big in the advertising world as well. We were talking like off camera about like how I come from an advertising background, and so when I found out that he started off doing skate videos, and then he started doing ads, and then he started doing like big budget films and just these moving films that you wouldn't expect to be as moving as they are, it makes a lot of sense. And with you, you know, starting off from like, you know, that we all have with our mother at that age, where we're trying to find ourselves, we're trying to find our friends, and he's just trying to like find his way in the world. And it's a very, I want to say, unique coming of age film, because we've gotten many coming of age films in like the early 2000s before, but not something that uses MySpace as a crucial part of the story, right? I haven't really seen it before. So talk to me about like creating that emotional like story within DÍdi.
Yeah, well, I mean, small Spike story.
Wait, did you meet Spike? Have you met?
He moderated a Q&A for us last week, and you know, we were hanging out, and he was like, oh, so like the character, like you also like grew up making skate videos?
Yeah.
And I was like, Spike, you made skate videos.
Yeah.
I filmed my friends skating.
I was like, you've done skate videos.
I was like, you did skate video. I goofed around. But I think it was, when I look in terms of DD, I kind of like you said, there were a lot of movies that obviously were made in the 2000s and obviously were set in current day of the 2000s when they were made. But
this one has like a more nostalgic look at that time.
Yeah, and obviously it's because it's made today and it's very much a period piece. But I think our ethos with the movie was always, let's make a movie that feels like it was made now, but set in the late 2000s. And I think when you look at the movies that were made in the late 2000s and were set in the late 2000s because they were made then, I felt like when you look back at those movies, I feel like they captured what I think the culture was like, because there's the way that things were kind of being done and made and said, but I felt like they never actually captured the way that a whole generation of kids actually grew up, because I think in terms of the MySpace and the internet, you hear a lot of filmmakers say like the internet's not cinematic, screens aren't cinematic, and so I think for years filmmakers worked around screens, and I think the bet that I wanted to take was, no, let's revisit that period and actually try to make it a little bit more of an accurate depiction of how kids grew up, which was with the internet. MySpace and AIM and Facebook, the transition to Facebook, and there's a lot of stuff in our movie that we couldn't even fit in because it just didn't fit the story, but like LimeWire, and I don't know if I can say that.
No, I mean,
LimeWire existed. It was
movie.
A thing. Pure volume, like all these different subcultures of the internet. Those are big. People were finding their identities and finding friendships, and playing RuneScape and MapleStory. Like those are all things that were such a big part of my upbringing, and I feel like, again, movies that were made then never talked about it or used it because I don't think as filmmakers we knew how to integrate screens into our filmmaking language. Now that I think we do, it was sort of like, well, let's revisit that period and try to make something that can be maybe not honest to everyone's, but like something more honest to what I remember, which was a life growing up with the internet and sort of that language.
I think it's very important to show the people's relationship with the internet in the way that you've done it, because for me, and I feel like you and I can speak to this. I don't want to speak for everybody, but I kind of want to speak for everybody.
Let's speak for everybody.
Let's speak for everybody.
Let's be the representative.
Like MySpace was so huge and like connecting us as like a culture and a people. It was like one of the first major things. Like I don't remember Friendster or nothing like that, but MySpace was like the first time where messaging your friends when you get home and coordinating and like creating groups and things of that sort. It was really big, and it was so big that it was tied into kind of like our emotional development. Right, and you use this in a film without spoiling anything. Have you seen the movie Searching? It's perfect way of like using screens in a very like cinematic way, where it's the anticipation of waiting for a message. It's the anticipation of, oh, what's on the wall today? Like, what are they seeing? How is that going to influence what happens after? And I feel like you've captured that so well in this movie.
And me and Anish share same, who directed Searching, Anish Chaganty. We both worked at Google. And when he left Google to go make Searching, they sold the pitch, and then I basically took his job. And so we have very similar parallels. We were talking about this the other day of like our careers and our lives and all this stuff. But I think what he did with Searching, which I love, I think our movies share a similar language in terms of the screen stuff. To me, it's like, oh, your movie can take place entirely on screens because it's set in, I think 2018 was when that movie came out, and it's like, oh, our relationship with technology is at a place now where you can have a movie that takes place on a screen and have it be emotional and human and all this stuff. But so again, like when looking back at our movie, it was like a more innocent internet where you were, half of your life was out on the playground or doing stuff with your friends, and you could log off. And like I think Searching works the way it does is because like everyone is so chronically online now.
Yeah, it was
Whereas
like a
I think,
crucial part of finding
in
what-
2008,
yeah.
2007, I talked about this with my friends. Like, I don't think people had that gnawing anxiety that a lot of people have now, because today, like, you can't really sign off.
Mhm.
You know, it's like Animal
I was
Crossing.
talking about how
Instagram's like
I
Animal
wish, yeah.
Crossing.
Yeah.
You know, because it's like when you're not on it, your life is still happening.
Mhm.
But back then, like on AIM, you could sign off, and it was like no one can message me. I'm
Mhm.
not online.
Yeah. See, I like that. And now I need to ask you, like, in the vein of kind of like logging on and logging off, because I used to like come in and come off when it comes to that top 8. Do we don't have to know them, but maybe this could be like a nice shout out to those people back at home who are watching this right now, because I'm sure your top 8 are watching you and what you do and keeping very close tabs on you.
Who's my MySpace top
Yeah,
8?
who are your MySpace top 8? I need to know.
From back then?
Yeah, do you remember?
Yeah. I mean, I have to shout out my best friend, Kevin Kim. I remember his MySpace photo was. Oh, this is actually a fun story, because that was the thing with MySpace too for me. Because in 6th grade to 7th grade, kids were already on MySpace, and I think it was like, I remember distinctly. You know, the middle school I went to, it was like a few different schools filtering into one.
Right.
And I was meeting a few of these like other kids from other schools on
Right.
MySpace the summer before 7th grade.
Okay.
And so it was like the first time that you had that experience of meeting other kids online before you met them in person.
Yeah.
You know, now it's so normal, because it's like, come and join the Facebook group before college, whatever.
Mhm.
But back then it was like, oh, who's this girl and who's this da-da-da.
Cute girl.
And I
oh my God.
remember
talking to her.
like 2nd day of 7th grade, I met one of my best friends to this day. And his MySpace photo was like a 5x5 In-N-Out cheeseburger.
What? Okay.
And it never changed. It was just a
Honestly, the MySpace photo pics were always just kind of like
just random.
just random as hell. I think I've only made my MySpace pic like 3 times.
Yeah.
Everything else, I was like Dwayne Wade at one point. I'm pretty sure I catfished quite a few people, especially since, like, remember you could code your own MySpace background? I
Yeah.
coded it to like Dwayne Wade. I had Fireman by Lil Wayne
Yeah,
playing in the background.
I wish I still knew all that HTML, but
We learned a crucial skill and just forgot about it. Like
yeah.
It was nothing.
Kevin is top.
Shout out Kevin.
Top
Of the top 8. And then anybody who fell off, rest in peace. I know I'm lucky to say that 2 of my best friends to this very day have like always been in like my top 8 on MySpace.
Yeah.
So I'm like, Ryan,
That's awesome.
Mike,
Shout
love
out
you guys.
Ryan, shout out Mike.
Shout
It's
out
funny
Ryan,
because there's a character in the movie named Fahad, and I have a friend in real life named Fahad, and we're close to this day.
Right.
And I remember asking him, I was like, do you want me to keep the character named after you? And he was like, yeah, because, you know, it's not him one-to-one, but he was like, I've never seen a South Asian character named Fahad in a movie. That just, like,
Right.
feels cool. It feels special. Like, and obviously it's him, so he's like, yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
And so, you know, hometown friends who watch the movie, they're like, is that Fahad? I'm like, it's named after him. And they're like, did you and Fahad break up? Because of the movie, you know, they don't really, it's like kind of, I'm like, no, that never happened. Like, we're friends.
Right. They think it's autobiographical.
Yeah,
I'm
I'm like,
airing out your demons with
I know.
Did Fahad like hit you and go, is everything okay with us? Are you trying to tell me something?
No, I mean, he was at Sundance.
Okay.
And so he watched it, and then it's like, they're like, oh, he's like telling everyone, he's like, yo, I'm the real Fahad. And they're like, aren't you guys not friends?
Nah, don't worry about that.
They're
Don't
like,
worry about that. It's not true. It's movie making, guys.
it's
Come
movie,
on.
yeah, it's movie making.
Okay, so speaking of like characters, like you have a wonderful cast of characters in this movie, but I really want to talk about Joan Chang, who plays
Chen.
So sorry, and she plays the mother of I'm sorry, DÍdi, not DÍdi, Chris.
Yeah.
I got crossed between Isaac, DÍdi, and Chris.
Just like the movie.
Just like the movie, right? It's a movie about identity as well. But tell me about the getting her, because she is an amazing actress, and I would argue that she steals the show in this movie, because what she goes through, being a parent myself now, and then just kind of like watching the shit that she goes through when taking care of how you would affectionately call him a punk kid in the best way. Like, talk to me about like the audition process, like working with her, and just overall just getting her performance.
Yeah, I mean, there was no audition process because her career spans decades. I would die if I asked Joan Chen to audition. But, you know, I wish I had a better story, but I do think when I look back at what I was feeling when we reached out to her, it was like, for better or worse, I didn't think of it as like, oh my god, like Joan, you know, she's worked with David Lynch and Ang Lee. I think that kind of came in after we casted her. And maybe because I was like, I don't even know if she's gonna say yes. Like, this is such a reach. But I wrote her a letter, and we sent her the script and the lookbook. And you know, she's from San Francisco, or she lives in San Francisco. She's lived there for 30 years, and so she was, you know, kind of local to, you know, where we were shooting. She read the script, and we had a Zoom meeting. And that Zoom meeting, you know, and it's funny, you know, talking to her about it and reflecting on it now. I thought it went really bad, because, but in retrospect, I was like, that was actually probably perfect for the character, because I didn't have Zoom Pro at the time, and so I signed on, and she couldn't figure out how to turn on her camera.
Okay.
And for like 15-20 minutes. And
Perfect.
I was like, you know, and you know, you don't want to like get into the nitty gritty of what we're supposed to talk about, which was the script and the movie. And she was just like, give me 1 second. And like, you could kind of hear her fumbling behind the camera. And I was just kind of sitting there looking at myself like, I think she was on like vacation. And I was like, how was vacation? She's like, just 1 second, 1 second. And I was like, what is happening? Like, I'm totally fumbling this meeting. And then we talked for a little bit, but long story short, you know, she wanted to do the movie immediately, but she is so generous and warm, and basically she was like, I want to do the movie. I just want you to want me to do the movie, because she was concerned that she's like, you know, I'm like maybe too old for the part. And I was like, you look like,
she looks great.
You look great. Like, you look like you're 40, you know? And so but she was just like, I think you've created such an authentic, lived-in world, and I don't want to be the piece that takes people out of the movie. And again, and then she said, you know, I'll even screen test for you if you want, just so you can be confident in your casting. And I was like, I'm not gonna make you screen test, Joan. You like, but it was that generosity and warmth that I think she gave to every part of our production. You know, she had no ego. And I think anytime I got a little bit like self-conscious about like, oh my god, like, am I saying the wrong thing? Because, you know, I'm a first-time director, and she's worked with, again, like some really, really great directors. As soon as like we talked or got on the phone or got to set and like really started working together, it never felt hard. It always felt so like just so intimate, and so sort of like, oh, we're doing this together, and it's like a very homegrown thing, and she understood the ethos of the movie we were trying to make. And so it felt like we were all trying to make the same movie, even though, you know, I zoom out and I'm like, oh man, she's like a proper movie star. She never brought that ego to our set, or any sort of any sort of, I don't want to say baggage, but just like she it felt familial and communal. And her daughter came to set with her every day, and her daughter is younger than me, but, you know, very much like I think she's like maybe 23, and so like she became part of our crew. We ended up hiring her as a PA, and so it was kind of like these, like, just a giant family doing something, you know, small together. And she's just like I truly cannot say more good things about the experience that she was like allowed me to have on this movie. And just like the generosity she gave.
That's awesome. Like, this is, so again, this is your first feature like film, and getting a big actress like that, I'm sure you were nervous as hell, right? Like, it's your first big film, big actress. And she helped you out a lot, and that's really great to hear. Going into it, like, you know, going into like working with her and kind of like taking on this big task of making this film, did you have any preconceived notions on how things were going to go? Like, were you already prepared to be like, okay, like, big actress, she's gonna have all these needs, or, oh, I gotta like work with, like, you know, I don't know terms, the gaffer, like all these type of people. What was your thought process before the first day of shooting, like being a first time directorial debut?
Yeah, well, I think the thing that I was telling myself mentally was just embrace the chaos. You know, I think I had worked on sets before that had kids, and I was trying so hard to kind of fit everything into like my vision, but like, and anytime something kind of went left when I wanted to go right, I would be like, oh, it's all falling apart.
Right.
And instead of embracing it, kind of going a different direction and kind of following the energy and what kind of, the film was presenting to me. And I think on this movie, 90% of our cast are first-time non-actors, and I think we wanted to capture this energy that was like really alive and spontaneous and just kind of vibrant, and knowing that like that's going to come from the kids. And I think it's only going to come from the kids if we allow them to be kids. And I think the infrastructure of filmmaking can be really, really regimented at times, because again, like every second you're on set, money is being burnt.
Right.
And I think oftentimes that can create this sort of like tense environment where it's like, we got to make our day, we got to, we're behind. And I think for us, it was always, you know what, it's going to be stressful. We know that any indie film is stressful, but like we need to protect the kids from all of that. For them, it needs to be nothing but pure fun. And not to say that, they could probably tell when we were like, oh, we're behind schedule. But like, as much as we could, we were like, look, if they want to go run and play tag between setups, let them. This needs to be summer camp for them, and then we're going to kind of follow that energy. Obviously, we had to keep production going, but like, it was really about, embracing the chaos in this case. And then with someone like Joan, it was, and it was like almost the family stuff, and then the friendship was like two different energies.
Right.
And then when they collided, how do you use separate parts of your brain? But I think with Joan, again, we had done so much prep before production happened, and she was in China for like the first week of our shoot, so she wasn't even on set. We were doing all the sort of like adolescent crazy set pieces, and then she came, and it was sort of like it wasn't like, oh, all of a sudden I'm working with a movie star, but you just felt her presence, right? And in a way that I think just upped everyone's game,
right?
And not in a way where it was like, again, like she's being demanding or anything. It was just, oh, she did her homework. She is on. Like the first scene that we shot with her and Isaac was the scene where they're shouting at each other in the car. That was like they met like an hour before that.
Wow.
And then we just thrust them right in. And again, it was not a creative choice. It was just scheduling, and it was like, I'm sorry, this is where the cards unfortunately had to fall. And I was like, I hope this works. And I was like, action, and it was like we shot a 2-shot, and it was just electric. And she just turned it on. It's like, "Duh," and then she like, and then she went, all right. And I was like, it was like nothing. And I was just kind of like, whoa.
It's
and you could just
level.
It was one of those moments on set where like, I like being close to the actor, so I was looking at my monitor, but I could just feel the producers at Video Village just being like, that was electric. And all the crew was like, okay, like we need to make sure we get this performance. Like, it cannot be out of focus. Just kind of like knowing that she is operating here, we cannot be the ones to make the mistake. And I think for the rest of the shoot too, it upped Isaac's game. And Isaac will say this, but he's like, she was a teacher and a mentor to me, not in the sense that she ever gave me advice, but just being opposite her as a scene partner makes you want to be better. And I think she did that for everyone on set. Again, she wasn't like a demanding movie star. She was actually so patient and like kind, and the complete opposite of what you would expect from like any A-list or whatever. But just by her being a part of the production, I think it like, I wanted to be a better director. Everybody wanted to make sure that we were operating at someone that we could be worthy of, like, working with Joan. And that itself was just kind of like, work with great people, and it makes you want to kind of get to their level.
I'm glad you say work with great people, because we're going to get into that. But to stick with what you said, I liken a lot of that to like sports. Like, I played a lot of basketball growing up. And it's not to say that it's like the same thing in competition per se, but whether let's take basketball for instance, you're playing either with a great player or you're playing against a great player, it causes you to like raise your level. And no matter what level you're at in that moment, you're gonna get better because of the people that are in front of you, and it just kind of like you get thrown in and you have to kind of rise to that occasion. So hearing you say that, where you have this person who no ego, just comes in, does a bang up, like crazy legendary job, and now you're just kind of like, well, looks like we got to do it too.
Yeah.
It's that infectious thing that takes over the creative process, right, and the team process, and I just love just hearing that. But speaking of, working with great people, you decided to cast your own grandmother as Nine Nine in the movie. Can you and you obviously worked with her on your documentary short. So was that an easy get where you said, who are we gonna cast as the grandmother? Let's just do my own, like, because we've already worked with her before. What came into that decision?
Well, I think in a strange way, the short was like her audition tape.
Yeah.
Right. And
did she walk up to you and say, like, you know who you have to cast? Like, it's...
No, she was saying no for the longest time, and
Okay.
I think I could have casted either of them,
Mm-hmm.
and it would have been a home run in retrospect. But Nai Nai, who's the older grandma, she's 97,
Mm-hmm.
and obviously, like I said, narrative filmmaking, the infrastructure is just like the short. We would shoot for an hour, they'd go take a nap.
Mm-hmm.
Sam would wait for the light to set and be like, "Oh, the poetry of the curtains," and it was just a luxury we didn't have on the feature, and so I think we were just like, it's too taxing for her.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a non-starter. But Waipoa, who plays Nai Nai in the movie, she's the age as scripted, and she still kind of has this youthful energy and is sprightly, and is actually sort of her body is like physically okay.
Yeah.
And so I would kind of joke with her over the course of 2 years, like, hey, you're gonna play the grandma in the feature, right? And she was like, no. And then eventually we got close enough to actually cast it, and I was like, I said it half kidding, but then it was like, I actually think she would be amazing.
Yeah.
Like, I think it would be a swing, and if it was a miss, my career's over. Everyone else who's working on this
you could just
movie,
blame grandma.
yeah, it's like that would be so embarrassing. But if it works, it would be such a home run.
Mm-hmm.
And
it was, I feel like.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I definitely, in retrospect,
Yeah.
it was like, could not have made a better decision. But like, I think we always looked at this movie, and it was, what are the decisions we can make that are only unique and specific to this movie, knowing that we're playing in a genre that is a little oversaturated. And not to say that we also made traditional choices, but I think as much as we could, it was kind of like, what is going to make this movie stand out, be unique? And casting grandma was one of those. It's like, no one can make that decision on a movie other than us.
Okay.
And I think it brought a sort of energy to the movie, and it brought like she became everyone's grandma on set.
Yeah.
She'd walk onto the set, and everybody, crew members, sound people, were like dancing with her and like making sure she was okay, and like bringing her chairs to sit. And so it felt like we were taking care of our grandma on set, and then she would come play with us in a scene, and she's like, that was fun. It felt very just like alive and fresh, and there was a concern, like, oh man, like, is she gonna be able to act opposite Joan?
Yeah.
Who is again like on, right? And I think, again, to Joan's credit, Joan is trained, professional, can hit her beat and her mark every take. Grandma, things would kind of shift here and there between every take because she's the non-actor, and Joan was sort of like the water that made her performance work, because she was the one who was like, okay, I have the ability to modulate my performance to fit whatever she's giving me. And I don't even think I could have articulated it while watching their performances on set, 'cause I was like, wow, this is great. But it was because Joan was like, she was the one who had to kind of follow grandma's lead, because again, like, she was the water that made her performance work, because she could have been like, oh, you're saying your line at the wrong time, like, you're saying it at a different time every take. But she's so good, and she knows that a non-actor's greatest moment, lightning in a bottle, is only there when they're not performing. And so I, as the performer, have to figure out how to not perform and be in the moment and sort of react to what's happening. And I think that alchemy, I'm just lucky that it worked.
I love that.
Yeah.
See. All right, so it looks like we're running out of time. I want to do one last quick little thing before we head out of here. You have made a wonderful coming-of-age movie that I feel like a lot of people should put up there with some of the best coming-of-age movies of all time. I'm dead-ass serious when I say this. 95% on Rotten Tomatoes, guys. Look it up. It's true. So I have 5 coming-of-age movies here. I'm gonna just name them, and you just give me a quick ranking out of 5.
Ooh, what if I haven't seen it?
Ooh, then I got literally 10, so we can just move on.
All right, let's go.
So, trust me, I believe you've seen these.
Out of 5?
Out of 5.
Ooh,
Ready?
I'm not good at ranking movies. I don't even put star ratings on my letterbox.
Really, I don't even do Letterboxd, man. Like I do it, but like it's hard for me.
Yeah.
It's really tough. All right, The Breakfast Club.
4.
4 out of 5. Nice. 8th Grade.
4.5.
Stand by Me.
5.
The Sandlot.
3.5. Well, okay. No, I would put it up there as like a 4, and I love that movie, but I'm like,
Yes.
I like the other movies that you just said
Yes.
more. Oh, no, okay. Sandlot 4, Breakfast Club 3.9. Because I like Sandlot more than Breakfast Club.
Don't change it on my behalf. Like, I'm just... we know what it really is, everybody. And last one, Lady Bird.
Ooh, 4.5.
4.5.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. All right, awesome. Sean Wang, everybody, director of DÍdi. Why don't you plug yourself, man? Like, what? Tell everybody about your movie. What do you do? Look at the camera. Give us a little slate.
Camera? This is like the hot ones.
This is the hot ones right here.
No, our movie DÍdi comes out it's in theaters now. It comes out nationwide August 16th. It was such a labor of love, 7 years in the making. Really made for kids who grew up in the late 2000s. And again, to what Ju was saying, all the specificity of growing up with the internet, finding yourself on MySpace, the transition to Facebook. I think there's something in here for everybody, but if you are a millennial and you grew up and you were a teenager in the sort of early 2000s, late 2000s, I think there's something even more specific here for you. So I hope you'll come check it out.
You heard it from the director himself, y'all. I'm just saying. Thank you so much for watching and or listening. Depends on where you watch and or listen to your podcast too. If you like this video and or podcast, make sure you hit the like, make sure you hit subscribe, make sure you share it as well, comment, keep us in the algorithm, keep this whole thing going, and we will see you guys next time when we talk about the next movie.